Welcome, everyone. I'm sure I speak for all of us in saying that our President Cyril Ramaphosa has shown great leadership compared to many other leaders around the world in how he has handled the coronavirus crisis. One of his central leadership strategies has been frequent, direct, and clear communication. As the PRC, we aim to emulate his example with our first ever live stream launch of a major new research study, PAMS 2019. We're streaming today's webinar via Zoom and for the first time also via our dedicated YouTube channel on YouTube Live, as well as opening up this live stream on our secure website page at prc.za.com. During this virtual launch and beyond, we aim to provide the media decision-making industry with clear, direct, and useful content. We all believe in content, but reliable content needs to come from trusted, credible sources. In a world awash with fake news, we should know that we can trust established, dependable sources of verifiable content, just like all the media brands represented in PAMS 2019. I believe it's the trusted content delivered by all these media brands that will ready us for the new normal after this hugely challenging period is over. It will end, but the world will be forever changed. It's up to all of us to ensure that it's a better, brave new world. Excellent content creation and delivery now and in the future can guarantee that it will be. Given the uncertainty surrounding media research, PAMS 2019 once again proves our commitment to sharing meaningful and consistent data that is independently audited, typifies global best practice, and contains usable brand data. Plus, we have embraced global trends such as fusion, and we will continue to collaborate with other JICs, trusted research suppliers, and world-renowned experts. Our complimentary online panel will ensure that we can continue to measure audiences during the ongoing COVID-19 crisis and into the future. At the PRC, we're extremely lucky to be able to rely on some of the best media research minds in the world. We're truly proud of the excellent work done by our own research team, as well as our trusted consulting and research partners. One of these outstanding researchers is our very own Pete Langschmidt. Pete needs no introduction, but allow me to just say this. There is no better research mind than his to take us through the insightful new media audience research study that is PAMS 2019. In addition to Pete, Terry Murphy, the head of Nielsen Media in South Africa, who's been at the forefront of fusion in South Africa and has fused PAMS with Nielsen's home panel of over 3,000 FMCG brands, the Global Nielsen People, Products and Platform Study, and recently TAMS, will also be presenting today. I'd like to request that you don't ask questions during the presentation, but ask that you rather make a note of any questions you may have, and we will respond straight after the presentation. After today, we will also release additional details, highlights, and interesting facts about PAMS 2019, socioeconomic measure, and our other products. So please follow PRC on your favorite social platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where this live stream will be available after we finish today. To conclude these opening remarks, I would like to take this opportunity to commend the stellar work being done by South Africa's publishers and journalists during this extraordinary time and appeal to you, the media decision makers, to support them. Never before have advertisers had such a captive audience, with millions at home tuned into media for information and seeking reassurance that not everything they rely on and trust has disappeared. There is sufficient evidence to support media plans that prioritize local publishers during the lockdown and into the future. Not least of all is the trust users have in the published word. Trusted sources of news and information has never been more important. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to show you that our members don't just promise to reach readers, we prove it. Over to you, Peter.
Morning, everyone. I'd just like to introduce you to the other members of the panel. Good morning, Terry. How are you?
Good morning, Pete. Good morning, everyone.
And all the way from Norway, I hope everything's good in lockdown in Norway. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Hi there, Pete. I'm good, thank you. And you look well too. So here it is, the fifth week I'm in lockdown, and the summer is coming on quickly, so it's really nice outside, but we're inside.
Great. Well, without further ado, let's get on with the presentation then. Okay, so our objectives of PAMS were complete reader measure, of audiences across all platforms to inform effective advertising investment. And we think PAMS provides a gold standard of reader audience measurement across the world. When we started PAMS in 2017, Nielsen looked at over 40 markets and looked at best practice in all those markets, which we've adapted and made further improvement to PAMS 2019. In terms of the survey details, this is very recent. The fieldwork was conducted in August to December last year with a sample of over 15,000. And we're going to discuss this later, but we changed our demographic supplier from IHS to GeoTerra Image. And the university is based on their estimates of 41.8 million. We measure 132 publications. As you can see there, 50 newspapers, 70 magazines, and 12 online news sites. We were the first reader study in the world to introduce flooding, and we went to 10,000 households. We got a flooding round. Flooding is where you're just in the household, the interviewer is in the household, and after they finish the primary interview, they then interview another adult randomly chosen in the household. And from that, we got our sample up to 15,000. Okay, in terms of looking at the primary readers, which was 57% primary readers, down to the total sample, you can see that flooding actually reduces readership. So one of the aspects that people say is they say, surely if the Bona is sitting on the desk or it's inside the house, that would introduce bias and there would be higher readership. Flooding cannot be used like radio and television, but this study shows that the other person in the house, the readership comes down. So there is no bias with flooding. It actually reduces readership. What do? We've got the primary sample of 10,000. We ask the reading demographics, and then we go into a products and a brands and a services. For the flooded, the second person in the household, we only ask as far as reading, and then we fuse or impute the data to assign products and brands to those flooded respondents, and we get a single data file of 15,250. Okay, in terms of the sample design, we're very proud of this. We're the first media study to use income as an additional sampling variable. When we audited the establishment survey and the first PAMS against 3 different demographic suppliers, GTI, IHS, and Fernridge, we saw that face-to-face was under-reading the top end of the market, and we had numerous workshops with Nielsen and TNS and IHS, and we flew Professor Nettling up, and we've now introduced what we think is a very important aspect of sampling is income, because remember, advertising follows money, not people. The way we did this was through a geo-segmentation called the Neighborhood Lifestyle Index, developed by GeoTerra Image, and it uses more variables than simply household. But we do place on the sample, we got 50% in that lower income, 30% in the mid-income, and 20% in the higher income. Just to give you an example of geo-segmentation, it looks at how the neighborhood differs from surrounding areas. It looks at the demographics and the stability of the demographics, as well as the diversity. And it also looks at the income. So geo-segmentation is far more accurate than a straight segmentation. And if anyone has ever thought about credit scoring, the credit industry is 100 times bigger than the ag industry. It's worth 2.5 trillion. And when you go and buy a new car or a house, they'll ask you what job you have and how long you've been at your address. They won't ask you if you've got a washing machine or a dishwasher in your house. So it's very predictive, and we're happy. This is another first. We're also happy to introduce a geosegmentation model into PAMS, and you can get it in your tables, in your crosstabs with your SEMs and your LSMs. We stick to our guns in terms of a disproportional sample in line with income share. And although 30% of the population is rural, we only make 15% of our sample. And 44% of the population is metro, and we make 55%. This is a change from PAMS 2017. In PAMS 2017, we had 50% being metro. Looking at the GTI data and the movement towards metropolitan areas, we believe that we've changed it 5%. We believe that's what is required to match the changes out in the marketplace. In terms of population group, blacks are around about 80% of the population. We go to 62% of this sample. The white population goes from 9 to 18 in this sample, and colored from 9 to 14, and Indian from 3 to 6. This is an amazing tribute to Professor Nielsen and the Nielsen GIS department. And the fieldwork is that we cover all 233 municipalities of South Africa. It's a great and very representative sample. Okay. Cluster sampling is used in face-to-face to bring down costs. So, for example, the establishment survey had 4 points per cluster. The map survey has 8, but we only have 2, and we have an algorithm that spreads them from either side of the SAL to maximize diversity and national representativity. Well, instead of reading this slide, I'm happy that Robert has joined us. And what we did in this case is, instead of waiting for the auditor to give us his opinion after the fact, we brought the auditor in before the fact for Robert to work with ourselves and Professor Nietling and Nielsen to look at the sample. And Robert, what did you think of the process?
Well, I have some knowledge of the South African media data, as I've audited PAMS over the past few years, as well as specific parts of the establishment survey. And I think that the PAMS 2019 sample design, as developed by Professor Netling, has been a very interesting process to follow, a very good scientific piece of work. The innovations adopted in terms of appointing a new demographic data partner, GTI, to provide accurate population movements into metro areas, compared with the inclusion of the PRC-inspired income sampling and weighting. It should give a well-balanced and efficient sample and is in line with the global best practice. So in my opinion, the sampling is well designed for the particular socioeconomic landscape of the South Africa market.
Right, well, thanks for that input, Robert, much appreciated, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay, cheerio. Right, we used a hybrid of cell and rim weighting, and as we've discussed, we had that design pre-weight with income based on the NLI of the chosen SALs and suburbs. There's then cell weighting in gender, age, area, and population group, all interlaced. And then because there are a lot of titles that are Afrikaans, we use room weighting on language for Afrikaans and other. The weighting efficiency is 74, which is above the international standard of 70. Right, onto the questionnaire design. The questionnaire flow, we begin with a platform question of where did you read on all those platforms. We're going to go through that in more detail. The respondent then selects their own titles that they have read in the past 12 months. And we then go into the details of those titles of frequency, when last, issue, readership. We're going to look at all of that. And we end up with products and brands and retail behaviors of the top 6 advertising ad spend categories. Okay, so computer-aided self-interviewing, instead of putting the respondent under the whip to try and overclaim on titles, the tablet is handed to the respondent, and the respondent simply ticks here, yes, I've read Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan. They tick down the left for paper, and they tick down the right or both if they have indeed read on paper and online. There's only 4 titles per screen, which we think allows the niche publications to get on the radar, and it removes any status-induced overclaim. Okay, other changes. The data is not strictly comparable to PAMS 2017 due to the questionnaire changes and the dual online masthead prompts and the new sample design using income. Okay, in terms of the expansion of visual online prompts, the definition is the same as it was last time, where we have made the changes. You can see in red here, we've just clarified when it says cell phone, desktop, or tablet, we say it could have been on the publication website, it could have been on an app, or it could have been on social media. So we just belt and braces, we just underline that. And digital only, once again, we say website, app, and social media. The red is the new part. Right, and that is carried through in the platform question where we spell it out once again. And this was a major change from PAMS 2017. In PAMS 2017, both the PRC and the members believed that it was under-reading the online readership. And the reason is people go to News 24 or IOL or Times Line. They don't necessarily go to the actual title, a Beeld or a Sowetan or a Saturday Star. So what we've done, this survey, which we think is better for respondent, everything we do is for the respondent, not to make our lives easier. We've placed what we're calling the umbrella site above the actual title. So it has IOL and Saturday Star, or Times Live and Sunday Times. And we piloted this. We tried to put the Sunday Times first and then Times Live, and this is the best way that respondents found easiest. So we have both on the online mastheads. A slight wording change. I'm not going to dwell a lot here, but we used to say copy, we now say copy or issue in terms of the frequency question. Now this is a big change. The Santon mentality of a salary at the end of every month doesn't really talk to affordability and in being able to afford your product, because maybe your wealth is in livestock or grants or other aspects that give you income. So we've changed the wording to reflect a more African way of looking at things. And you can see in red here, apart from the normal, your total monthly income, we say please include all sources of income: salaries, pensions, government grants, rentals from a room in your back garden, informal trading, stokvels, or income from investments and families. So it's far broader, and you'll see that affects the bottom end as well. What also affects the bottom end is, and these are small things, but they make a massive difference. We used to say 0 to 190 to 9.99. We now say R1 to 9.99, and we extended this top group. It's very small, but for readers, it's a lot bigger than for any other medium. The same with personal income. We'd go to that 1, and we include 100,000 Rand plus, but we also include a new category: I have no personal income. Okay, and some new questions. Do you personally have a SASSA government grant card? You have a credit card and these loyalty store cards. By the way, all these questions, which have a finite number of people, we call anchors, and we use that to weight our online panel so that you can look at reading versus other media types. We've changed the question. Apart from the average, we've changed it to the day question. On average, how many hours per day? We've got radio in there, and we've got viewing as well. So you can look at that as well. We all know that readers are not only rich monetarily, they're rich in terms of influence as well, and knowledge and experience. So we introduced these influencer questions. You say, this is not me, this really doesn't describe me, this describes me quite well, this describes me perfectly. And it's things like, I'm one of the decision makers at work, and I keep abreast of changes and people ask me my opinion. So an impact, a reading impact in print or digitally is not the same as in other media, because these are movers and shakers of the economy. Okay, and we also asked, did you vote? Are you registered to vote? And what type of house do you live in, and do you have electricity? Okay, what was excluded from PAMS 2019 was the store magazines, and you will see that will have reduced the readership in total, but not of the individual titles. The average issue readership, obviously paper, is based on the recency method, and it's the recency method of the masthead, not of a particular title. And the recency method is based on, have you read the title within the issue period? So a daily, you would have had to have read yesterday. If the interview was conducted on a Monday, you would have had to have read it the previous Friday. A weekly magazine or newspaper, you had to have read in the past week, and a monthly magazine within the past month. Obviously, with online, there is no average issue. They're ongoing living documents, websites that change every few hours as the story develops. There, we've got read in the past 7 days and read in the past 4 weeks. And in PAMS, you can now do total multi-platform readership. You can combine paper with past 7 days or with past 4 weeks. We also ask multiple pickups. Thinking of this copy of this particular publication, in this case, Sunday Times or Borna, did you only pick it up once, 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5 times, 6 times or more? Now, obviously, if you pick it up more, you have another opportunity to see the advert. And as is to be expected, a daily newspaper, 49% of people only read it once, whereas a monthly magazine, a third only read it once, and people read it more often. So the average number of pickups is 2.1, 2.3 for weeklies, 2.7 for weekly magazines, and 2.8 for monthlies. And obviously, if you have over 2 pickups or opportunities to see, that would reduce your cost per 1,000. And yeah, print is the only medium that you pay for one, buy one, get one free. Okay, and we've also asked time spent reading by every title. So you can also look at that. And once again, as is to be expected, a daily newspaper's average is 51 minutes, a weekly newspaper 60, a weekly magazine 71 minutes, and a monthly magazine 69. So that's what happens there. In terms of advertising inserts and leaflets, any retailer will tell you that's the name of the game. To get feet in store, you have to have all those products in your inserts, and consumers do indeed use them. 61% use them to compare prices, 53% to actually plan their shopping. A full third have bought products as a result of seeing them, and only 12% of people don't even look at them. What are the topics of interest? And by the way, these topics of interest also allow you to start planning as you do digitally on fashion connoisseurs or petrol heads or whatever aspect you're looking at. So you don't only have to plan via demographics, or you can now plan on interests as well. And with newspapers, community news, local news, current affairs, sport, etc., you can see all of that. And magazines, they are the topics of interest, real life stories, celebrities, sports, etc. Right. Key demographics, the socio-economic measure, you can see pretty stable between PAMS 2017 and PAMS 2019, with a slight increase at the top end, as you'd be inclined to expect with increasing socio-economic standards, a slight increase at the top and a slight decrease at the bottom end. We don't really dwell too much on LSMs, as they don't really measure the true reflection of the South African marketplace. And they haven't been updated since 2011, but there again, they reflect that similar pattern. Okay, in terms of household income, you can see the spread of PAMS 2019, and the average is 13,000, and readers obviously much higher at 14,000. What is very good, we always look for validations of our samples, and the GTI data based on their 17 million households in a completely different aspect is 13,181 versus our 13,230. One thing we do is our top end 100,000 plus aspect. Normally on other surveys, research houses or indeed the committees that run it, they just guess the top end and say, oh, it's 110 or 120. We actually went to SARS data based on all 5 million taxpayers, especially at the top end, based on over 250,000 taxpayers, to get averages to make sure that these incomes reflect what's out there. So as you can see, the PRC spend a lot of time working on income to get these averages right. And that's why our averages are higher than other surveys. Okay, and now I'm going to hand over to Terry to take you through the results.
Right, hi, thanks, Pete. Okay, so what we have here is the 4 major print groups results in PAMS. It's not a total of every publication in South Africa, and there are some differences in the group's publications, which I'll point out during the results section. Right, let's go into it. So the first thing we see here is this is the 12-month reading question, and we see a decline from paper in paper from 85% to 78%. We just point out that the numbers in brackets are the PAMS 2017 results, and the ones above that are the PAMS 29 results, 2019. Another thing we see here is almost doubling of online-only reading, which is good to see and as expected. The paper, the device in the online portion is predominantly cell phone. And what we still see is a rather large paper-only universe of 25 million. So that still remains significant, of 5.2 million, and these are not duplicated. Overlap between print and online, so people reading on both platforms, and 2 million people reading online only, which is pretty big. We see a higher income group in the online only portion. It increases by more than double from the paper only, and the average age group in the online portion is 5 years younger than the paper only group. Right, so here, newspaper, what we see is higher online and always has been. It's obviously much easier to pick up news online than it is to read a magazine. Again, we see the higher, wealthiest portion of the readers in the newspaper section at 25,000. It's really good. And again, a massive increase in online only reading of newspapers. Okay, and magazines, a similar picture, although we see the drop in paper-only magazines is much softer than newspapers. And what we do also see is almost triple growth in the online-only portion of magazine readership, which is really interesting. Obviously, these guys are a bit younger than me and their eyes haven't deteriorated, but that's a real good uptake, and again, a much younger group and a much wealthier group reading online. Okay, so total audience in terms of 12-month readers, what we see here is a decline from 84 to 77%, but what we need to point out is that in the publication set in 2017, we included store publications and subscription magazines. So store publications like Clicks and Edgar's and Fresh Living, and the subscription magazines like DSTV. Those have been excluded in PAMS 2019. Okay, and average issue readership is pretty much the same. It's very, very slight decline. The reason for the softening of the decline in average issue readership compared to the total readers is that we seem to have lost a lot of light readers or irregular readers, while the core readers have stuck around. Okay, and here you see the step down. Now, this is something we always look at as a scrutiny slide. So we need the step down to be in the region of mid-20s, and it is. So it was 28% in 2017 and 24% in 2018. And again, that's just because we've lost those light readers. All right, so here we see it split out reading platform. PAMS 2017 down from 82 down to 72 in 2019, but a massive 6% increase in cell phone consumption. The other platforms are really not significant. Desktop or laptop about 2%, and tablet 1%, and you'll see in a slide quite soon, almost declining. All right, so this is interesting. What we're seeing here is a slight difference in the way, in the repertoire of consumption. So if you look at the PAMS 2017 versus PAMS 2019, here we have paper and online for newspapers, and then the total of them, magazines, and then the total of them being 2.8. And then if you look at papers plus magazines, in both the paper and online environment in 2017, that was 3.6 on average. Now, in 2019, here's a significant increase to 4.1 on average. So it's an overall increase in reading repertoire when you're looking at both paper and online, newspapers and magazines. Okay, so newspapers. What's quite good to see here is that although at the top, if you look at the ABC paper percentage change in the 2-year period in the region of just over 20%, this drop is not seen in the PAMS results. And the reason is that we're measuring the online portion, and a much softer drop, which is great news. Go to the next slide. We can see exactly what's going on. So we have any daily, any weekly, and then the total of any newspapers. And we see the increase in the online across all 3 sections, or both dailies and weeklies. We actually see an increase in total weekly consumption when you combine online and paper. And the overall is just a couple of % down, nothing like what the ABCs are showing. So great news for newspapers. This is a scrutiny slide which we use when we look at publications. It's a ranking table from 2017 to 2019. And what we look for is to not find significant changes in rankings that don't make sense if we consider things like circulation changes over that period of time. So in this one, the ranking still does make sense. We see a slight increase in the business day, so it's a couple of positions up, and the star is ever so slightly down. Okay, and again, very similar picture with the weeklies, Ilanga up, Mail and Guardian up, and the top 5 here are absolutely identical. So again, just a good security factor with these two surveys, making sure they're trending properly and the results make sense. Okay, so magazines, again, it's a similar picture. It's circular ABC paper circulations down in the region of 20%, and a much softer situation, and it's not very different from the newspaper scenario where it's been protected by the online uptake. We'll see that in the next slide. Okay, and so here you see it. So overall, really nice increases in the onlines in both weekly and monthly publications, and a really good support of the total monthly publications overall consumption. Again, the scrutiny slide just makes sense, very similar, the rankings. Here, the middle set has changed a little bit, but those numbers are so similar. It's really a position shift, means very little when it's talking about a couple of hundred. So it's a good picture. Okay, and lastly, in terms of internet and device, so this is great. You know, we would expect, and we do know, that cell phone consumption has grown from 51 up to 63% or 64% in PAMS 2019. A nice validator is, if you look on the right, the 64.7, so around about 65% or 64% out of Stats SA, showing general households in their general household survey of 2018. So it looks good. PAMS is right against Stats SA, and here you see the decline in tablets down to 2.3%. All right, and Again, the growth in cell phone only, the decline in computer only. We see quite a high income group in the combined tablet and cell phone category, and much younger cell phone only readers compared to computer and tablet only. Nice big population as well, almost 24 million of cell phone readers. And this is the last slide in the cell phone category, something which Peter actually taught me. So the ordinary cell phones that we all had a couple of decades ago, still sitting at about 24%. The feature cell is the BlackBerry type of thing, which was this little slice in history between the ordinary cell and the new smartphone technology. So those are still in the 5% of people have them, and smartphones are 64%. So total incidence of cell phones is at 93%. Fairly saturated. Right, and that brings me to the end of my section. I'm going to hand over back to Peter again to talk about the nice retail data and the brand data.
Thank you so much, Gary. That was great. Okay, and as everybody knows, those brands that people miss from the AMPS days, PAMS has got the biggest sample of brands of any media study. So yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The incidence of vehicle in households has been around about 33-34% with the margin of error for 20 years. With a purchase of that magnitude, although lifestyles are increasing and incomes, something like a car stays the same. And those figures of 66% having none, 3, 2, 1, etc., pretty straightforward. Once again, Toyota and Volkswagen head and shoulders above everybody else. No great surprises there. That's pretty much business as usual as to what you'd expect. But now you can plan your campaigns on your particular brands or whichever competitive brands you're targeting or groups of brands. In terms of banks, people asked me what the greatest surprise was of PAMS 2017, and I said it was the rise of Capitec Bank to 23%, double the amount of customers of any of the traditional big four, and that has continued unabated. It's actually amazing. You see Capitec has grown by almost as much in this 2-year period as Nedbank total customer base since it started. So the rise and rise of Capitec continues. And when you look at the unbanked, they don't have a bank account in PAMS 2017 was 32%. And most of that 3%, about 600,000 people coming into the banking arena, Capitec gobbles most of them up. Okay, obviously we look at household purchases, and that obviously doesn't change much. And in the retail category, not many people are exclusively loyal to one store. You go to a meeting and you stop on the way home and buy something, or you pop down, or you do your monthly shopping somewhere else. This category is about share of customer, not about share of market. We stopped asking the questions of frequency. How often do you visit it? Because I may visit my Woolies down the road, but all I'm doing is buying milk and bread. I'm not spending most of my money. I save that for a monthly shop at ShopRite or Pick n Pay. And so we specifically asked, spend most money. And as you know, previously ShopRite did not have a loyalty program. Whitey Basson said he would never give away another further 1%. He's had to recant on that. Well, not him, but the new management. And now Spar, every single retailer has got a loyalty card, which is why we asked that question in any case. But we ask, where do you spend most money? Where do you spend second most money? So you can get a share of money. And obviously at the bottom end, it's ShopRite and the Pick and Pay bottom end brand boxes. And in the mass market, ShopRite head and shoulders above the other major chains. And at the top end of the market, Pick and Pay just edges out ShopRite. Okay, also bought furniture and appliance. Those 25% of people who bought furniture and appliances. And remember, this includes kettles and toasters, so it's not only furniture. That's why Game and ShopRite come out tops, going down that way. What is interesting is other outlets, mom and pop electronic stores, that is the major part of the market. And in this COVID times, these are the people who need to be looked after, these small businesses. I spoke to someone making an acquisition of restaurant software just aside, and he said of the restaurants, 50% will not reopen after lockdown. In terms of clothing, and this is bought in the past 6 months, 65% of people say they have. Mr. Price continues to be the market leader, and the brands are going down. What did stick out to me here was Jet and Edgar's, which have traditionally been right up at the top. And it was amazing when you see PAMS 2017. And this, once again, it validates the research. When you know what's happening with brands and you see it reflected in the research, it just gives you confidence in the research. So yes, consumers are struggling, and most brands have come down 5 or 6% across the board, except for some of these smaller brands. But even Mr. Price from 33 to 26, Ackermans 23 to 18. But look what's happened to Jet. It has almost halved from 25 to 13 and from 19 to 10. And this is what happens when, and it's just been declared bankrupt last month. Edcon closed 150 stores, and their share of voice in this category went from 27% to 17%. So when you cut down, obviously it's going to reflect in the marketplace. So yeah, that's the end of the brands, and they're really looking good and reflecting what's happening out there. So yeah, that's the end of me, and over to Joe.
Thank you very much, Pete. Very insightful and excellent data. We will we'll stop the YouTube live recording for the Q&A for the purposes of putting this on our website. Everybody, all this information will be available on our website, and the data on the software bureaus from the 9th of April. So thank you very much for attending, and everybody stay home and stay safe. Thank you.